Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits tied to February 19th to February 25th. Just a quick little reminder for everybody. I am running a special still on my Synastry readings. Readings are really helpful for your relationships. They are 100% relationship readings, but they are also good for business partnerships. They are good for generational trauma and generational healing, and they are good for parent-child dynamics to make sure we're doing the right things to encourage a certain type of love language for our children so that way they can grow up and be successful in ways that we did not feel supported in our childhood. So, quick little reminder of that. If you want a one-on-one session with me, that is going to be $35. If you want a 90-minute session with me, that is a $55 package. Okay. You want more information on that, you have to go check out some of the prior episodes because I have really talked about this for quite some time and we're getting to the end of the month now. So, okay. This last week that we were in had the ability to be the most powerful, traumatic, transformative, crazy, chaotic, disruptive week. And depending on who you are and where this has been falling in your chart, you have been experiencing either that in your personal life or you have been seeing it in the lives of someone else. We had a couple of transits last week that really set the stage. And what I said last week is that whatever was going to occur last week was meant to be something that was new, a new dynamic, a new part of the situation, a new encounter, a new situation. It was something that for a lot of people, they were not expecting. A new diagnosis, a new connection, a new encounter with somebody's personal fear and their own personal trauma and something they needed to start to work through and needed to start to heal. Some people you encountered something that created trauma and created wounds. And where we go next in this week is again an energy of where we need to start to heal. We had 3 transits last week that kind of really set the mood for the entire week. Those 3 transits, we had Mars make its conjunction to Pluto. That happened the 13th and 14th. That was Valentine's Day. I said before, don't have high expectations on other people. You need to be aware that if they're not in a good place, doesn't matter if you are, that this is not a good Valentine's Day to have a huge expectation on another person. It just wasn't. There was acts and actions that were meant to be disruptive. They were meant to trigger certain amounts of fear. For other people, they were meant to trigger certain amounts of personal power and transformation. And you know which one you are. We're past this energy. The next 2 transits kind of went hand in hand. From Friday going into Saturday, we had Mercury in a square to Uranus. And for a lot of people, there was a lot of crazy, unexpected, exciting type of information, situation, conversation, connections, and interactions. Good, bad, and ugly. And simultaneous to the Mercury-Uranus square, we also had the Venus-Pluto conjunction. And for a lot of people, Venus was the solution, it was the resolution, it was the final detail, the final nail in the coffin, being understood, being felt, being seen. And again, there was a lot of people this last week that had some level of unexpected upheaval, chaos, trauma, fear that was incited. For other people, though, it was a new amount of recognition, strength, transformation, and personal power. And whichever way this went for you, the events of last week started to set in something that is starting to come together moving forward. Because when Venus went into Aquarius and made that conjunction to Pluto, she also did 2 other things. One, she started mutual reception with Uranus. And these next few months, while Venus is going through Aquarius and then Venus is going to go through Pisces, I feel like her dynamic is going to shift more towards relief and healing and personal power and personal levels of independence, and really taking on a whole different level of personal strength compared to where we have been. Because the way we've been dealing with Venus since July of last year has been more towards loss and release and letting things go and breaking out of karmic connections and breaking out of karmic contracts. And it has been a very struggling energy for many, many people. But now we are going to start to shift that dynamic. Now, I know the first bit of Venus and Aquarius included that conjunction to Pluto. That was meant to have a certain effect to it. But I feel like the rest of the timeline of Venus going through Aquarius, which is going to be the rest of February and going into March, we're going to have a different dynamic from her with this mutual reception to Uranus, because it empowers her. She has a different level of strength. She has a different level of notoriety and acceptance. And her whole gain right now is going to be more shifting towards levels of independence and breaking away from the past and making logical shifts into a new direction. The other thing that occurred whenever Venus went into Aquarius is she started her conjunction to Mars. And for all of the rest of the month of February, Venus and Mars will be within a 3-degree conjunction. Now, that actually goes exact this week. And there's been a dynamic of Venus for months now that will shift after the conjunction to Mars. And that's going to go exact on the 22nd. All for these last few months, Venus came through later with a resolution, a solution, the Band-Aid fix, tying the ribbon on the box and making things better. She's had a different energy. And more than likely, for a lot of people, she has been fixing the things that Mars has just disrupted, or she is finalizing the things that everybody else, all the other planets, has been disrupting. However, this week, with her conjunction to Mars, there's going to be something more empowering to her. And she's going to feel more capable of expressing desire, expressing hope, expressing certain things. And as this week concludes, we will feel more of that Venusian expression of this is what I want, this is what I will have, this is what I need. Because the thing about Venus is so much of her energy has been minimalized and so much of the excess has been removed that it has made space for new. Been saying that one for a while. We had to make space for the new. Now, how long you've been making space or how long you've been waiting for the new to start to come through is different for everybody. Some of us understood the lessons from the beginning and we went cut, 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 chop, 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 deuces. Bye, babe. But some of y'all took a lot longer to learn that lesson. You did. Her dynamic is changing this week. Her dynamic with Mars will also change this week. And again, whatever is starting to come through this week, I truly feel like is something that's going to directly impact eclipse season. We will have one full moon eclipse in this entire 18-month axis, and that's in Libra. We have one new moon eclipse in Aries while the North Node is in Aries, and that happens this eclipse season. And if you want more information on that, go check out my Meditative Rant video and just look for the chapter on eclipses. I explained this already. There's so much of the energy that is starting to unfold and take shape right now that has been cementing into this new awareness, this new reality, this new dynamic, that a lot of the energies from here, from this week, is building on the new. It's creating something. We've made the space. And now we have to build. Now we have to imagine. Now we have to create. Most of February is meant to actually be really good energy. The heaviest of it was last week. And I didn't sugarcoat that. I made everybody aware. I made you all very, very aware that that was going to be the case. Now we're starting to shift into something new. And by the end of this week, our awareness of what we are creating, what we are building, where our mental focus is going to be moving into will be very, very clear. The dynamic of Venus and Mars will change. Where prior to this moment, Venus has been more of the solution, the resolution, the band-aid, the bow, the whatever. Now she will be the one expressing desire, expressing her hope, instigating change, instigating a plan. And Mars's dynamic will be the actions that follow. Oh, babe, you want to move that wall? Cool, I got a sledgehammer right over here. No problem. Let's go flip some breakers. Flip the breakers before you tear into a wall. Mars's energy from this point on will be the follow through to Venus's desires. He will be not making space and clearing a path, but more along the lines of helping her incur where she wants this new dynamic. And we are in the start of a trickle effect energy. We are in the start of it. Much of where we are going to be as we go through this week is going to be leading into follow through energy. We have been in the process of starting new things, in the process of cementing a new reality. But now we have to start to build. And how the build happens and how that's going to go from here is going to vary for everybody. And I'm calling it building, but for not everybody it's building. It is learning. It is gathering more information. It is going to be educating others and bringing them up to speed. So for some people, it'll end up being training. For other people, it's going to be more scans and more information and more doctor's appointments of trying to determine something that we do not know. And again, everybody's in a different element depending on if this is playing out in your personal life, if this is playing out in your health, if this is playing out in the health of your loved ones, if this is playing out in your career. We're all in different spaces. I try to give the most universal span that I can in these episodes. So let's get into the week. Let's get into Monday. Now we got to be really fair. Monday and Tuesday really feel like a lull. They can be filled with anticipation for some people, but for other people, they're going to be more of like emotions and processing, because there was something very specific that occurred Sunday going into Monday in the overnight hours from literally, 8, 9 p.m. going into midnight, at least in the Central Standard Time. And that was the sun and the moon change signs into these water signs in a trine to one another. So a lot of what we were getting into in the overnight hours of Sunday into Monday had to do with emotional understanding. And a big portion of the weekend was first wrapping our head around something and then leading into the emotional processing. And I do feel like for some people, Monday is going to have a lot to do with emotional processing, putting something into perspective. And I really feel like Monday and Tuesday are their own days. And that a lot of the dynamic of this week will change once we get into Wednesday. But we can still feel some type of buildup. We can still feel some things coming together. We can still feel some things kind of changing. And whenever it comes to the energies of Monday, some of us are going to be hearing about things tied to people that we don't immediately understand, that we were not aware of, that we were not in tune with, that we don't recognize, that we don't necessarily support. And that can happen anywhere throughout the day, because the moon is going to be in conjunct Pluto, in conjunct Venus, and in conjunct Mars. That's more those overnight hours going into like Monday morning. But the human effect is we can either be having really late night conversations on Monday or Sunday, or early morning conversations on Monday about, again, things that we don't necessarily support, that we don't necessarily understand, that we are not necessarily aware of, or that we don't necessarily have a full way of being a part of. Like, it's just not our problem. The other thing that we can be doing with this emotional energy, given that we got two little small transits that are going on, because they're truly not that large. We got two things going on here. Saturn is going to trine the moon, so water to water support and understanding. And this is going to go with exact between 1 and 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then between 3 and 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, Jupiter is going to sextile the moon. That's why I'm starting this at 2:30 in the afternoon, because there's just not a whole lot going on with Monday. Some of us are going to be the Saturnian one in this, and we are going to be, giving guidance on how to handle something. We're going to be working through a situation that we don't necessarily need to be responsible for, or we are going to be telling somebody else how to be responsible for something. And again, a lot of what can be going on is stuff that we've never dealt with before. Some of us are going to be helping somebody overcome a situation, work through letting something go, working through the emotional processing of things that just occurred this last week. And some of us are literally helping somebody get their shit together. And what I mean by that is, like, if you just had a breakup this last week, sometimes you have to move out. Sometimes you have to gather all of the stuff to go drop it off at somebody else's door. There's going to be some level of understanding and responsibility, hope, and support. Some of us are going to be, the teaching element in this situation. Some of us are the ones that are doing all of the packing. I can't look at his stuff. I can't look at these pictures. I can't do it. And you're fine with saying that, and you need to process however you need to process. But some of us are going to have to be the cheerleader. We are going to be the support. And we're going to be like, it's okay, babe. It's okay to delete those pictures. It's okay to block them right now. It's okay. But what if something changes? I don't think it's going to change. If you didn't set something as a separation, a trial separation or something this last week, if it was flat out like, I am not doing this anymore type of thing, if that's what got revealed, then I don't think it's a trial separation. Think of the rules and the ideas that just got discussed this last week. Okay. Aside from the Saturn, Jupiter, Moon trio type thing, there's not a whole lot to Monday. So a lot of Monday is about people, being in their emotions, dealing with their emotions, trying to understand how we recover, trying to understand how we heal. This is the start of Pisces season. So trying to understand how we heal. Be very aware of what Pisces rules in your chart, because that's going to be a big topic as to what's going on this week. Is this your fifth house? Is this love and luck and joy and happiness? Is this your sixth house of health? Is this your ninth house of travel? I mean, if it's travel, that's not a heavy energy at all. It's just trying to get everything in order, or getting things ready to go back to school and things along these lines. So Monday's not heavy. And frankly, neither is Tuesday. Both Monday and Tuesday, I feel like if you need to work through something internally, work through it, because these are the days to really to handle it. Some people know that you're about to have something come together, and the more of the coming together is going to start to set in the 21st, the 22nd, and 23rd. So again, once we get to like Wednesday, I feel like we're in a whole different week. We're a whole different mental energy, but some of us need to do some processing before we can have the new. Okay. When it comes to the 20th, Venus conjunct Mars, it's building all day. It's not happening though. The only transit that we're going to have is going to be super small. It's going to happen in the morning between 9:30 a.m. and noon, basically. And that's going to be Uranus is going to sextile the moon. Now, Uranus is sextile. Again, this is not heavy energy. The only thing that I will say is look at all the crap that we have in Aquarius. This is Uranus's sign. So there can be something that has some type of additional layer of information, some type of unexpected or exciting news, some kind of communication, something that occurs that is going to distract us from what's been going on, or it's something that confirms some of the things that are coming together, some of the things that are changing, some of the things that are shifting. Some of us can find out that somebody else has something going on and it's unexpected. Like, oh, I didn't even know that they were, looking for a new job. You're telling me that they're moving? That's crazy. Like, it doesn't have to be heavy. I don't feel like it's going to be heavy, but I do feel like it can be something that's unexpected. And if you've been in an emotional funk for the last 2 days and you get to this energy right here, it can break you out of that emotional funk. Be like, oh, that's different. That's unexpected. That's helpful. That makes me feel better. I thought it was just me feeling kind of crazy right now. It's not just you. It's not just you, babe. Okay. Again, 19th, 20th, 20th, whole lot of emotion, whole lot of things that are going to go on. And really, there's not a whole lot of heaviness to either one. When we get into the later part of the 20th, the human effect is what I'm going to describe next. Astrologically, this happens after midnight going into the 21st. But the human effect is this can happen late on the 20th to really early on the 21st, because we have two things that are going on right here, right after midnight. So this goes the most exact between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. What's going to happen is the moon is going to trine Neptune. Simultaneously, though, the moon is in conjunct Mercury, not seeing eye to Mercury. We're about to have a full moon in Mercury sign at the end of this week. So our imagination can be running wild. And we can be trying to process something that we don't have the rest of the information yet. We can be getting super excited for a job interview and not knowing how it's going to go, but we're trying to imagine it. It's like we're practicing the interview questions. We're trying to anticipate what is going to get said, but we don't know what is going to get said. We're trying to anticipate what's about to happen, but we don't fully know exactly where it's going to be, who's going to be asking the questions, the kinds of questions that are going to get asked, the kinds of conversations that are being had. We can just have this moment where our mind is running so wild. And again, the moon is in a trine to Neptune. We can also have the weirdest dreams that just do not make any sense at all, because they're forewarning you of something that has not occurred yet. So be aware of your dreams whenever it comes to those overnight hours. You can be sitting here and looking into something, getting on YouTube, like the super mundane stuff, but right now, by the way, of like, I want to know how to build a bridge, humor me. and we start to see the information and the ways and the facts of something that we've never learned before, that we've never known before, we don't even necessarily know if we're ever going to use it again. This can either be something where it captures our imagination, it captures our dreams, or it's trying to learn and understand something we've never dealt with before. Not a heavy energy. It doesn't even feel emotional anymore. It feels like we need a distraction. Like we've had enough of the emotions. I need something else. And this is why I did the YouTube comparison. Like sometimes we just need to go through the rabbit hole. Tuesday, if you're up late, rabbit hole, just go. Not a bad thing. Now, the human effect is, again, this can happen late on Tuesday or early morning on Wednesday, depending on how this is, manifesting in your personal life. Now, when we get into actual Wednesday, so real deep on Wednesday, at 7:41 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go into Leo. So I've got this at 7:30 right now. I bumped this by one more hour. The moon is in Leo, and what is it doing? It is starting its opposition to Pluto. And between 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to oppose Pluto. Please note that Venus and Mars are getting real close on their conjunction. It's not exact yet. It's not even going to go exact today. But I really do feel like once we get into Wednesday and that moon goes into Leo, our energy level changes. Things start to shift. We are not trying to take care of everything else and everyone. We are not trying to work through our emotions anymore. We are feeling a whole different sense of pride, excitement, being seen and understood. And this 0-degree opposition between the moon and Pluto is really, really interesting to me, because I do feel like we can encounter someone new, something new. We can encounter somebody that has a whole new level of personal power and personal strength. We can encounter something that leads to changes and transformation. And when I say it that way, it can be physical transformations. Looking at a house that needs to be renovated, looking at an old car that needs to be flipped, physical transformations just as much as personal transformation. Seeing someone that has gone through a transformation, baby, that BBL looks so good on you. I'm so happy for you. That didn't have to be that stuff. It does not have to be bad. But we can encounter someone new. And I do feel like there's a newness here that speaks to some of the things that are going on. Now, we might have some forewarning that this new is going to happen, and that forewarning could tie back to last week. But we're meant to connect, see, encounter. Some of us are going to see something for the first time and learn about things that have been going on behind the scenes, that have been going on for another person that we were not aware of before. Again, this does not have to be heavy energy. But for a lot of people, I feel like the moon's opposition to Pluto is very much an encounter. Some of us are going to feel very empowered by it. Some of us are going to see somebody in their personal power, and it rebuilds a certain type of strength inside. It gives us a whole new energy boost. And again, it speaks to some of the things that are coming together. Now, the moon's opposition to Pluto, again, 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. We can be vibing off of whatever this energy is all day. This does not feel triggering. This does not feel heavy. This actually feels really, really good. And then whenever we get into the evening time, between 8 and 10 p.m., 8 and 11 p.m. Central Standard Time, I said that wrong. The moon is going to make its oppositions to Venus and Mars immediately before their actual conjunction perfects on the 22nd, because we're just hours away from this conjunction. We can be telling somebody else about something that is coming together. We can be telling somebody else about a recent opportunity, about the earlier encounter, about what dynamics have changed and how they're going to be moving forward from here. And note how I said that. I said it very much in the intro, and I'm saying it again now. We can be noting and encountering and discovering how something is going to be moving from here. Because after Venus and Mars have their conjunction, she will now be leading the way and dragging Mars behind her instead of trying to play catch up, instead of doing all those solutions, instead of doing all of the fixes. Her energy is going to be very, very different after the overnight hours of the 21st going into the 22nd. We can be encountering something that is coming together. We can be seeing something that is changing. We can be telling somebody else about something that has just changed, something that is starting to come through. Even if we're not full on announcing it to everyone quite yet, we can be talking to someone else about what is starting to come together, how we are starting to be seen, expressed, and known. It's very positive energy. Now, when it comes to Venus and Mars, there can be a lot of things tied to desires. I desire this moment. I desire this encounter. I desire this independence. I desire this success. I desire. And Venus's energy is at a whole different level of strength now that she's in mutual reception with Uranus. So this desire and this encounter can be very, very uplifting. And it will have actions that will follow. We can have a lot of celebrating. Maybe it's just that internal quick little celebration, not the full celebration. It can be telling somebody else that we want to accept something, but there is something about the late part of Wednesday and the early part of Thursday with this Venus-Mars conjunction that speaks to something that is meant to be seen and come together in a whole new way and in a whole new light. The moon is in Leo, a whole new light. Again, the Venus-Mars conjunction will not go exact on the 21st. The moon will make this opposition right as they're starting to go exact, but they're not actually going to go exact until the 22nd. So we're going to start bumping this along. We're going to get into Thursday. Okay. So between 12:56 a.m. and 1:34 a.m. Central Standard Time, Venus and Mars will have their exact conjunction. So you can see this right here. Mars is at 6 degrees, 58 minutes. Venus is at 6 degrees, 58 minutes. A good hour-long part of the evening. Are we going to be feeling it on Wednesday? Absolutely. Are we going to feel this on Thursday? Absolutely. The things that are going to start to come together in this moment, the things that we can start to feel happen, the actions and the reactions have a whole different level of benefit. The solutions and the ideas are going to start to change, but we really can feel a lot of things coming through. And I'm being honest about this. For a lot of people, this is going to be a heavily sexual desire energy too. So, enjoy your thing. Okay. Also in the overnight hours between 2:30 and 4:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon in Leo is going to square Jupiter. Jupiter is actually in the higher authority. We have just had the sun go into Jupiter's sign. So we're at the start of Pisces season. Jupiter in the square to the moon can be a hopeful push, a hopeful direction, a moment of teaching, of making somebody aware of how things are going to progress from here. This kind of still feeds into that Venus-Mars conjunction, how things are moving from here, what we desire, how we hope things will continue. There's something very, very hopeful in this energy. I really like the moon in Leo this go round. I love this energy. The only one that might not really like this is maybe a Virgo rising, to be honest, because 12th house stuff, but a lot of us are going to be feeling like the positiveness in this energy. Okay. Excuse me, I apologize. Now, the other thing about the 22nd is that this is the last day of Mercury in Aquarius. Some of what's coming together makes us very, very aware of what we are building, how we are building it, what we are doing next. And much of what we're going to do next is going to be a little bit of foreign territory. But our awareness that we are about to shift into this and start, again, building up what we've newly cemented, how we're taking things to the next level, is meant to come through between Wednesday and Thursday. That is when it's the most exact astrologically. Mercury, and this being the last day in Aquarius, many of us know that we are about to shift our focus. We're not going to feel so mentally stuck. We might feel mentally stuck given that this is the last day and there's no heavy dynamic to this transit. But really, we're going to start to feel ourselves getting ready to transition. We're going to feel ourselves moving away from some level of stubborn energy and allowing another form of transition, the buildup of the transitions to start to occur. It's not heavy energy. It can actually be a lot of fun. We're going to be riding this energy all day. There's not a whole lot of transits to the day. In fact, the next transit that's actually going to occur is going to be in the evening time. And that's whenever Uranus, 19 degrees, is going to square the moon. We're going to feel this the most exact between 9:30 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. That Venus-Mars conjunction, it occurred in Uranus's sign. The conjunctions to Pluto occurred in Uranus's sign. Mercury is about to leave Uranus's sign. Whenever it comes to Uranus's square to the moon, there can be this energy of, again, telling somebody the things that they're not expecting, giving guidance to what has just occurred, hearing about what has just occurred, and hearing about what is mentally transitioning. Some of this is going to be stuff that's online. Some of this, again, is going to be just something that's very unexpected. Some of this is going to be like really boastful and helpful and hopeful. And we're going to be really feeling ourselves getting unstuck from the recent events and allowing our focus to go somewhere else. This has got a lot of positive energy to it. So I really like the moon in Leo. Now, the one thing about after the Uranus moon square is, technically speaking, after this, the moon's going to go void. Luckily for us, it's happening so late in the evening time, at least here in the States. Other areas of the world, it might just kind of feel like after all of this exciting, crazy things start to happen is, we don't necessarily have a whole lot going on for a few hours, or we start to we're riding one level of energy, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. But technically speaking, the moon's going to go void. So now we're going to start to get into the 23rd. And when it comes to the 23rd, Mercury is going to enter Pisces at 1:29 a.m. Central Standard Time. So here we go. 1:30 a.m. Here's Mercury, newly in Pisces. Now, the thing about Mercury in Pisces, I said this in the month ahead forecast, I'm saying it again now, I call this screaming possum energy. Because so much of the mental energy is like, we don't know always how to react. We're not always going to know how to respond. What's interesting to me is I honestly feel like the things that shift into place as we go through the 21st and the 22nd brings a whole new level of awareness, and the awareness of the February 23rd all the way to March 9th. So through the month of February and into the way we start March really brings a whole different level of a dynamic to it. And I'll kind of tie more into that when we get into the closing. But when it comes to Mercury in Pisces, Mercury is said to be in its detriment. It does not do well in Jupiter's signs. However, Mercury does do well when it comes to Saturn. And one of the first things Mercury is going to start to do whenever it goes into Pisces is it's going to work into a conjunction with Saturn. And I feel like that can be super helpful. But I feel like these next 2 weeks, starting on February 23rd, is a whole timeline of mentally transitioning from one energy to another. And this mental transition can directly impact where we're going to go in eclipse season. So we're going to start this transition energy, and a lot of us are going to feel like a fish out of water for a while. We're not going to know how to immediately respond to something because we're not in a territory, we're not in a situation that we're used to being in. That can be good and that can be bad. That gives us the chance to, potentially build some new habits, new ways of communicating, new ways of responding. Some of us might have emotional responses in where areas that we would not normally respond emotionally. So again, it can be good and bad, but there's something very specific that's coming through as we go through the 23rd and the 24th that directly speaks to the energies of Mercury and Pisces. So we're going to keep this going. Venus and Mars are still in their conjunction. They're separating, ish. We're still in their vibe, but we're far more aware. Our mental energy is moving into something. Many of us are going to have some type of decision that gets made between the 22nd and the 23rd. Some of us are going to have the arrival of some type of new information, or we're going to, again, deliver some level of information based off of the recent givings that are going to impact this mental transition. Think you're accepting this job opportunity, but you're going into a whole new position. You're going into an industry you've never worked in before. You know that like you've been in sales, like you know how to sell something, but you don't necessarily know how to sell, machinery whenever you have only done car sales. You can do some of it. Some things are going to cross over, but the product knowledge is not the same. Understand that we're going to be transitioning in a lot of ways into a lot of areas for many of us about things that we don't know. Some of us are going to be transitioning our focus because what has come through in the last week directly impacts the body and impacts the health, so to speak. And again, our focus is shifting. Okay. Now, again, the moon is still void. So there's not a whole lot to Friday to me that screams like raw, brand new type of energy. It really doesn't. What we have going on whenever it comes to Friday, Venus and Mars are still in their square. Venus is building its square. I'm sorry, Venus and Mars are still in their conjunction. Venus is building a square to Jupiter, but it's not exact. And really, the moon is going to be in Leo all the way until 7:38 p.m. Central Standard Time. So a lot of Friday is kind of a carryover in riding the energy of what has gone on the last few days. Fridays does not have a whole lot of brand new energy. It's not going to have a whole lot of activity to it. We can still be vibing. We can still be feeling good. We can still be aware of a change, but we're not really doing anything with it. And considering if you are going to start a new job, very few of us want to start a new job on a Friday. It's kind of better to wait till Monday anyways. And that kind of goes into what transits we'll have on Monday, but that's a whole different conversation. Okay. Right after the moon goes into Virgo, it starts its opposition to Mercury. We will feel that the most exact between 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and midnight. I've got this at 10:30 p.m. Here is the moon at 1 degrees, 25 minutes. Here is Mercury at 1 degrees and 34 minutes. Right on top of each other, right in their opposition. There can be a weird mental energy of trying to logically talk about how we are feeling. We're trying to put a logic and a plan together about some elements of things that are unknown because we're trying to prepare for this new focus, this new topic, this new situation. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel bad, but it is starting to round us into the full moon in Virgo. The full moon in Virgo is actually going to perfect exactly on Saturday. So we're just going to start moving into Saturday. And we're going to get into the morning time. So the full moon is actually going to perfect at 6:31 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm not moving this by minute. You guys know that. You give me by hour. That's enough. So here is the sun, 5 degrees, 23 minutes. Here is the moon, 5 degrees, 22 minutes. It's close enough for government work. This is a full moon in Mercury sign. Now, a lot of times full moons have to do with completions. This does not feel like a full moon that's got completions to it because we've had too many things transition into new energy. So this feels like a transitional full moon, a logical transition, a communications transition. When it comes to logical, you can also think logistics, like the transition of a different type of planning, a different type of connection, a different type of placement as to where we go each day. There's something very transitional about this full moon in Virgo. The ruler, Mercury, just went into Pisces. We just became aware of some kind of new information. So there can be a lot of logistical, mental, preparation type busyness, physical type busyness, putting something in order or creating a new order, trying to get an idea of how something can come into order. But again, we still don't know the full dynamics of where the transition is going to take us. We know enough, but we don't know everything. And that's going to be a big portion of the energy for the next 2 weeks is we know enough, but we don't know everything. And that's okay. Keep us going. I'll, of course, do the full moon in Virgo video later this week, and I'll do that a little bit more detailed. Got a couple of things that are going to happen as we go into this full moon, and that is one, after the full moon, between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon in Virgo is going to make this opposition to Saturn. Dad, I'm going to need you to start picking the kids up from school. Can you take them to the bus stop? Can you help me do this certain thing? Sometimes it's dad and mom coming to you going, hey, I need you to start, doing these extra things around the house because we're going to be gone. I need you to take this level of responsibility. Some of us are going to be getting questioned by our parents, by an authority figure. Some of us are going to be telling something to an elder, to an authority figure about some kind of recent change. Some of us are making mental notes as to what we need to tell an elder or an authority figure, somebody that we respect. Not a heavy energy. Again, a lot of planning, a lot of communication, a lot of just busyness going on. Simultaneous to this, Jupiter is going to trine the moon, and that's going to go between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm just going to bump this down. Here's Jupiter, 10 degrees, 28 minutes. Here is the moon, 10 degrees, 19 minutes. This is earth to earth, tangible to tangible. Mercury is not in a tangible place. It's in a transitional place. The moon is in a transitional place. It's a very transitional full moon, but a lot of what's transitioning has a long-term effect because right as we go through this, Venus, still in her conjunction to Mars, is going to perfect her exact square to Jupiter. This is a whole different level of empowerment. This is actually going to go the most exact between 9:47 and 10:05 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I've got this at 9:30. That's going to be close enough. Here's Venus, 10 degrees, 29 minutes. Here's Jupiter, 10 degrees, 30 minutes. So you can see that they're right on top of each other. We are building into this energy all day. And a lot of people, whenever it comes to the Venusian side of things, Venus being far more empowered, having minimalized and purged so many things, she has a whole new idea of how she wants to continue the expression of how she feels, her hopes and her desires. There's a whole different level of feminine energy and feminine empowerment with Venus in this square to Jupiter. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in the closing because I feel like this ties into that full moon in Virgo, just to be clear. Many of us are going to be talking about the recent changes, how they're going to move forward, how we want to take something to the next level, our ideas of what the next level is going to be, whether that next level is in relationship, whether that next level is in our own independence, whether that is a next level in our own businesses. We want to take something to the next level. We have a hope in mind. Some of us just need to have some type of mental escape and we need to do something fun. And this is like a girl grabbing her best guy friend and her best, homies. All my friends are dudes. It seems like most of them. The majority of my friends are guys. So it's just like, hey, let's go do something different. And we need something a little bit more active. We need something to, again, break our mental energy. But a lot of this is whenever it comes to Venus squaring Jupiter and Venus is in the higher authority, she is going to express an idea of something she desires. Feminine expression will be huge next weekend, especially when it gets to Saturday night when Venus is square to Jupiter is exact. Now, given Mars is right behind Venus, and Mars will also square Jupiter, but that's going to be the start of the next week. Whatever we are expressing, whatever ideas that we have, whatever we desire in this moment, it will have a follow through of action that will come through with Mars. And that is how we start the week. So again, whatever little things Venus has an idea of will have an action or a reaction that will follow. For many people, what starts to occur after this Venus-Mars conjunction will play out in double whenever we have these squares to Jupiter. And then here in about 2 weeks, the squares to Uranus. So be aware of that. Okay. Considering the ruler of this full moon, the sun, Saturn, and Neptune are all in Jupiter's sign, a lot of what Venus can be expressing to Jupiter can have to do with what Pisces rules in your chart. So be aware of that also. Again, is this your fifth house? Is this your seventh? Is it your first? Is it your sixth? Be aware of what this house rules in your chart because a big part of the transitions are going to have to do with this area. Okay. The Venus-Jupiter square again goes the most exact between 9:47 and 10:05 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is how we're ending the evening. A lot of wanting to put things in order, getting a plan together, expressing our desires, expressing our hope, communicating things, putting something into a logistical order. There's a whole lot of energy about movement and transition right now, and that is not a bad thing. Now, when it comes to Sunday, Venus square Jupiter will be separating all day. Venus's conjunction to Mars will be separating all day. Mars in its square to Jupiter is building all day, but does not go exact. It actually goes exact on Tuesday. So again, much of what we are desiring is going to have an action or a reaction that follows, but it's not going to happen this weekend. When it comes to Sunday, a lot of Sunday's energy is either filled with anticipation to the actions that are about to occur. We are filled with excitement from what has just occurred, or we are filled with some level of mental focus, again, as to what has just occurred. And the only transit that really goes through on the 25th is going to happen between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Uranus, 19 degrees, 27 minutes, is going to trine the moon in Virgo. Excitement, something unexpected, the next round of news, the next round of information that about what has just occurred. You might be hearing about something that happened the night before. Your friends got back together with somebody. Your friends went and did something super exciting, and then the next day they're posting pictures on Facebook. It doesn't have to be crazy. Doesn't feel like a crazy energy. Some people are just exciting and expressing like the new things that they're going to do. And when it comes to the energy of Sunday, there's not a whole lot going on. Mentally, we're busy. Some of us are going to spend that time like really putting some things in order, getting some things reorganized around the house, putting some things together. Some of us are going to be like really communicating a whole lot of change and getting some things in order in regards to our schedule because we suddenly got way busier in the last few days. We're going to have a whole different level of getting caught up, and then an expression is going to change with Venus's conjunction to Mars. And many of us that have been trying to catch up with actions are going to surpass that. And that's going to be a good thing. Now, the other thing that is starting to build as we go through Sunday, but will not happen exact this week, is going to be the sun's conjunction to Saturn. And anytime the sun makes a conjunction to Saturn, a lot of us start to really feel like we need to take a whole different level of responsibility. We have to really put some things in order. We have to really put something in motion. We have to get something taken care of, given all of the transitions that have gone on that have been recently cemented and now that we are building on. The level of building is going to have a whole different level of responsibility and consideration that is going to set in as we go into next week. But again, it's setting in as we go into next week. Much of what we're going to be doing over the course of this next week is really going to be playing through as we go through the 21st, the 22nd, the 23rd, and the 24th. The 25th is kind of a mental break. We have a lot of things that are starting to come together. And I really mean it when I say pay attention to what Pisces rules in your chart. Because Mercury's entry into Pisces, usually Mercury spends about 3 weeks in a sign. This is not going to be 3 weeks. It's going to be less than 2.5. And the energy of this transition, again, feels like a lot of us are going to be mentally shifting into something that's a little bit unknown, that we're not going to fully know how to anticipate, and we're not going to fully know how to express. But there's something really telling to me with the way we start Mercury and Pisces than to the way we end it. Within the first 36 hours of Mercury going into Pisces, we have 2 transits that are going to square from Aquarius over to Taurus. Venus is going to square Jupiter right as we go into the full moon in Virgo. Of course, this is going to be a full moon ruled by Mercury, and Mercury just transitioned into a new sign. When Mercury leaves Pisces, we will end Mercury and Pisces in a square between Mars and Uranus and the new moon in Pisces. So this next 2 weeks of lunar activity really speaks to mental transitioning. And in many ways, some of us are going to transition away from one way of doing things and into another way of doing things. Transitioning into a new focus, into what we're building next. Sorry, I'm trying not to cough. We are really starting to hone in on a whole new focus. And not everything is going to come through this week. Some of it is going to come through as to where our focus is going to be once Mercury goes into Pisces and we start to deal with more of that energy. But a lot of where we go next has some level of hope and desire as to where we're going to be successful, where we are going to speak volumes into a new energy, where we are building new elements. Now, some of us, we're not building at all. What came through over the last few weeks has been something that has been very, very revealing in regards to our career, in regards to our health or the health of somebody that we care about. And what we're going to spend the next few weeks doing is trying to understand who, what, when, where, how, and why. Who did this to me? How did we get here? What do I do next? What do we do next? How do we fix it? Can we fix it? And Mercury going through Pisces is going to really be something that impacts people's lungs and extremities. Some people are going to feel like they can really start to move again in a good way. Some people are going to feel like they can't move at all because like their joints are going to hurt. You can experience both. But we need to be aware of the fact that we are moving. And some of what has just occurred is done. And what we're going to be focusing on over the course of these next 2 weeks is meant to bring in new information that we are not immediately going to know how to deal with. It is meant to bring in new situations that we are not immediately going to know how to overcome and how to handle and how to fix. It's not a heavy week, but we are starting to feel things come together. And those things that are coming together are, again, making us aware of either where we are going to be learning new things, shifting our focus, or building on the new. And I hope for a lot of people you're building, especially if you had a bad week last week. I don't want any more bad weeks. I don't feel like this is a bad week. I actually feel like this is going to be a really fun week. We're going to have a lot of things that are starting to come together. And if you have felt like every time you make a step forward that you're just barely catching up with something, and it's like you're waiting for the next reaction or the next action, I feel like once Venus and Mars come together, that if you feel like you've been trailing behind and nothing's been quite going your way, I really feel like that after Venus and Mars have their conjunction, that some people are going to suddenly get ahead of the disruption, ahead of disaster, ahead of arguments and frustration and betrayals and all of these things. A lot of people are going to suddenly feel like they're getting ahead of something. That's not a bad thing. Instead of trying to have to fix things constantly that have been going on, it'd be nice to be ahead of something. Be nice to be able to say, I got an idea. And the idea leads to actions and reactions versus somebody else's actions, disruptions, and chaos and bullshit needing to be fixed all the time. That's not a bad energy. Pay attention to what's coming together this week. What does Venus and Mars rule in your chart? Because a lot of that is going to come together. And there's a lot of us that we've been trying to get some things coming together there. We were trying to put something together in this area of our life 2 years ago that didn't work because we had an interruption. That doesn't make sense to you? Go watch that Meditative Rant video because I covered a lot of shit in that. Venus and Mars have had a conjunction in Aquarius before. It happened 2 years ago, but it got interrupted by Saturn. And it's almost like dad came into the picture and said, y'all can't date no more. No, I'm not for this. She's too young, not happening. Da, 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 da. 2 years go by and she ain't too young no more. It's an example. And some of the things that are going to start together and coming together and flowing from here will not be interrupted by karma. It will not be interrupted by Daddy Saturn. It won't be interrupted by authority. It will not have the same levels of interruption. There is meant to be a flow. Pay attention to what's coming together. Pay attention to what Pisces rules in your chart. Pay attention to what Venus and Mars rule in your chart. Because things are meant to come together in a very certain way from here as of this week. And I still don't feel like it's a heavy energy. I really don't. I feel like our focus is going to change. For some people, this focus is going to be a distraction. For other people, this focus is going to be exactly what they need because this is what they have been working towards. And you know who you are in that situation. It's not a heavy week. It's not a bad week. We're shifting. For many of us, the shift is very, very overdue. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Facebook Live is going to be a little different because I've been having issues with Facebook Live. So this week, if Facebook does not do what it's supposed to do, I'm going to be switching over to TikTok. I'll still post on Facebook letting people know that I'm going live, but the last few times I tried to do it, like it just did not want to work appropriately and I've had to switch over. So be aware. I might not be live on Facebook. I might be shifting over to TikTok just because I didn't seem to have the same issues with it. And a lot more people were able to come onto the live and get different types of insight based off doing that. So I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. And of course, there will be a full moon in Virgo video later out this week. All right, guys. Thanks. Talk soon. Subscribe.